These are 6 negative surprises from my first 6 months being retired. And I've been a financial advisor for over 20 years, so there should be no surprises, but there were. So let's jump in. The first one is, boy, oh boy, does it take time to find your new purpose in life. Now, I had prepared ahead of time. I had thought about this ahead of time. But frankly, as the primary breadwinner for my family, a big part of my identity was just being the provider, earning those resources and being able to provide the financial support that my kids needed and wanted, that my wife and I needed and wanted. And a large part of my identity was tied into being a provider. And now, money is not the scorecard for me. I need to figure out what the new scorecard is. I'm getting closer. I think it's going to be impact, being able to have impact on the lives that I care about and the lives that I'd like to help make just a little bit better in my own small way. But I'm still working through that. The second one is that moving your home, moving your location, moving, in my case, states. So I moved from Utah to Washington State. Moving and retiring at the same time is a lot. It's a big, big change, right? We have this social network that we've built up, in my case, about 30 years in Utah, and having friends, having relationships, running into people at the grocery store. And frankly, it's been more challenging. I've always made friends easily. So I was surprised it would take as long as it is. And I'm only, 4 months into this move. And I've been gone because I've been traveling. But moving and retiring at the same time is a lot. And if I had to do it over, if I could have chosen how the pieces would line up, I would have retired first, spent 6 months, spent 12 months in my same location, and maybe spent more and more time in my new location, but not like in my case. It was, one day I was in Utah, the next day I was in Washington State. So that's the second one. The third one is, candidly, I don't have as much free time as I thought I would. And that's both a good and a bad thing. The biggest reflection that I have on retiring is I feel more relaxed. Before, I felt like a lot of us, I was juggling a lot of balls in the air. And it's nice to not have to juggle all those balls and to run from one thing to the next thing. So I feel relaxed, but I don't feel like I have this flood of new free time. Like I said, that's a good thing, and it's also a bad thing. As I develop new habits, as I think about my new purpose, frankly, I'm not sure how I'm going to squeeze it all in, because it feels like my day is pretty full right now, but I have some latitude. I can spend more time. I don't have to rush from one thing to the next. And speaking of running from one thing to the next, the classic example was my fitness routine. I try to work out at least 5 days a week. And it used to be I would squeeze in the gym where there was time. And now I can give it a higher priority, and I can stay longer. And for me, one of the things I like doing is yoga. So before I retired, I would do cardiovascular, I would do resistance training, weight training, and then I would do yoga, and I would rotate through those three. But now I'm trying to make yoga a daily thing in addition to the running. So it'd be yoga and running, or yoga and weightlifting. And it's nice to be able to have that. So the positive surprise is I have more time for the gym. The negative surprise is the other component of trying to regain my health and to stay as healthy as I can. It's still a drag in the kitchen. It's still a drag doing the meal prep and thinking through, okay, what are the healthy meals my wife and I want to eat this week, and which of those am I going to prepare for us? And that's still not something that I enjoy. I guess I may never enjoy it, but it's a critical part. Obviously, staying healthy, they say the battle's 90% in the kitchen as opposed to in the gym, and I believe that. So I've had more time, and I've enjoyed having more time at the gym. I have more time for cooking and shopping, but I don't enjoy that, so I'm not spending the time doing that. Okay, number 5, switching from being a saver to a spender is harder than I thought it would be. Again, I've been a financial advisor for over 20 years. I've seen people transition into retirement. I've talked to people on my YouTube channel about the importance of hitting the ground running. And I'm really glad that for a couple years before retirement, I kind of eased off the gas a little bit on the saving side and started spending more money. And frankly, it was easier for me to do that for my kids and my wife than it was for me. For instance, I went to go see my mom, who's now 91 years old, and my daughter, who's 22, wanted to go with me to see her grandma. And I sent my daughter in first class, but I stayed in coach. It was surprisingly not that expensive to upgrade to first class, and it was a long flight. So I was happy to do that for my daughter, but you know what? I still had a challenge doing that for myself. Okay, the other thing is retirement can be more expensive than many of us think, particularly if we want to hit the ground running. So one of the things on my list to do was to spend some quality time in New York City. I've always told my wife I'd like to live in New York City for a year or two, not forever. That's not in the cards for her and I. My wife likes open space. So I had a chance to spend about a month in New York City, and I wanted to take advantage of that. That can be expensive. And then I went to Central America for a month, and traveling can be expensive. So switching from a saver to a spender can be hard. I think I'm doing okay, but frankly, it's because I've been a financial advisor and I know how important it is, and I know how quickly things can change for any of us. Right now, I'm healthy. I'm 60 years old. I'm healthy, I'm active, I'm mentally acute, and that can all change, right? Hopefully it doesn't change for 20 years. Hopefully I get that 1,000 weeks of healthy, active time after turning 60, but none of us know. Okay, number 6, and this is a big one, our risk tolerance. The pain of market losses increases once we no longer have a paycheck coming in, once we no longer have new money coming in. And so I'm fairly conservative in my personal investments now because I know that trees don't go to the moon. Believe it or not, since the October of 2022 lows, right? 2022 was a tough year in the stock market, and it bottomed out in October of 2022. And as I record this, it's a little past 2 years past that. Believe it or not, the S&P 500 is up over 60%. That's a big move, and that's really nice. That's given many of us a nice opportunity to catch up on our investments. But the bad news is anything that can go up by 60% in 2 years, unfortunately, could also, I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but anything that can go up by 60% can also go down by 60%. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I know if that were to happen, that would feel much more painful to me today than it would have when I was still working. So I'm much more conservatively invested now than when I was working. Related to that is, at least in my first year of retirement, my tax rate's not going to drop as much as many people think their tax rate will drop in retirement. And in fact, right now, US tax rates, none of us like paying taxes, but they're fairly low. They're lower today than they were 5 years ago. And now with the Trump re-election, they're likely to stay low. But my tax rate is not as low as many people think it will be in retirement. And that's a big expense for most of us. So thinking through that's important. And then the final one is just, it's been nice to reconnect with my wife. It's been nice to have this extra time where we can just spend casual time together. Everything's not squeezed in to such short pockets. So that's been really nice. And if you're thinking about retirement, if you're wondering when the right time is for you to retire, that's why I made this video up here, which is why waiting to 65 to retire might be a big mistake. I'll see you in that video.